last words.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it. I think
It's promising.
well, Ted's sitting back there, so who knows?
Good evening, everyone. I have 7:04. I'm going to call the city council meeting together. And ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David,
Present.
Mr. Tyler Dean,
Here.
Miss Emily Hamburg,
Here.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Here.
and Mr. John Welch.
Present.
And you have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. I have our regular pastor, Gary Green, had a sudden emergency, so he asked Mr. Daniel Vanderbon, is it how you say his name, to lead us in prayer this evening. So, Mr. Vanderbon.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an honor and a privilege to stand before you. I just ask that you invite you guys to go to prayer with me for a moment. Lord, we come before you. We ask you to touch each and every one here. We ask you to lead and guide them in each direction that they go. We ask you to bless the community, bless each and everyone's hard work here tonight. We thank you for all that you do. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item 5, determine agenda additions. Do we have any agenda additions this evening? Hearing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. So the consent agenda contains minutes of the August 2nd City Council meeting, as well as a revised petition for sanitary sewer main in Skyview at Block 49, second edition, Phase 1. Bids were received a week ago, and the low bid came in $10,000 above the petition amount. So the developer agreed to the additional cost and assigned a revised petition with a higher amount. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. David. Thank you. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So items 7A, consideration of appropriation ordinance. This includes a period where water meter supplies for new construction locations. The costs are split between water and sewer funds as expense and is offset by water and sewer tap fees. Also included was a payment of $66,982 for the new crack sealing machine. Are there any questions to staff?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David,
make a motion to approve the appropriations ordinance 22-15.
I will second.
motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Smith. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We have no city requested appearances this evening, so we'll move on to item 9, public hearing for the purpose for IRB Block 49 LLC. And the purpose of the public hearing is to give property owners and other interested parties the opportunity to speak on the proposed industrial revenue bond and associated exemption from the ad valorem taxation of property construction or purchased with proceeds from the IRB. I hereby open the public meeting. If you wish to speak, please move to the podium, speak in the microphone, and state your name and address before giving your comments. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. I see no one from the public here. Am I wrong? So,
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hamburg and second by Mr. Welch. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. So citizen concerns, I see no citizens here, so I'll move on to council member reports. So Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll have a quick report this time to offset my lengthy report last time. I just wanted to thank the Bel Aire Police Department and all the sponsors that helped put on National Night Out. It was a great event, and the kids, and there's a good crowd. So,
Thank you. Mr. David.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended the National Night Out. I'd like to thank the police and staff as well for putting that on. It was a fun time. My son had a great time. He particularly enjoyed the snow cones that the Lions Club brought, especially once he learned that their snow cone bear had a name and it was Pete. He was super excited about that because Pete happens to be one of his favorite characters. So it was a great time, and thanks to everyone that worked to put that on.
Mr. Welch.
No report.
Ms. Hamburg.
Yeah, just two things. I attended the Lions meeting last week and appreciated hearing from Passageways, an organization here in town that here in Sedgwick County that provides services to veterans. I also attended the Bel Aire Ball on Friday night, and I would have liked to have been in two places at once. And my understanding is that that's not going to happen next year. So, but it was a great event as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, move on to the mayor's report. So I understand our city engineer, Ann Stephen, has a birthday today. So join me in wishing Ann a happy birthday. So I think everyone knows that Los Conados and Dollar General are hurting for business. We all need to do what we can to patronize these businesses during the reconstruction of 45th and Woodlawn. It's going to take the rest of the year. So this is a long game. It's unfortunate Cake News made a report where they quoted a secondary source that misstated my thoughts on how construction affects businesses. The Cake News never contacted me about that story before it went on air. Road construction always has a negative effect on surrounding businesses. We have seen that and many times over in the metro area. When I spoke to Mr. Hector Antonati, the manager at Los Conados, about the effects of it's having on his business, I told him I would put out an email blast to try to drum up some business for him. Since then, I have sent out 3 email blasts reminding citizens of the need to patronize these businesses. Feedback I've gotten from those email blasts that people are going to Los Conados, some for the very first time, and are making a point to return. That's what communities do. We pull together when people are having a difficult time, and I'm thankful and grateful for the people who care enough to respond and hope that others will also follow suit. I also understand there has been some chatter on social media platforms. That is very good, where those platforms are encouraging people to patronize these businesses. Let's help these businesses through this difficult time of road construction. On August 9th, I attended the WAMPO TB Policy Board meeting. So a couple items from there is the annual bike ped count is coming up in September. So they still need volunteers. For more information, please contact Dora Gallo at dora.gallo, Gallo, at wampo.org, or call 316-779-1315. The K254 did get added to the critical urban freight corridor as a tier 1, meaning a top priority for WAMPO's report to KDOT. Part of the charter, WAMPO tracks air quality for the area. The standard is for surface level breathable air, ozone, to be less than 70 parts per billion on a 3-year average. Our latest numbers are 64 parts per billion. So we are in an acceptable range, but pushing the limit. On August 10th, I attended the Utility Advisory Committee meeting. There was some talk about how the city communicates on urgent issues like boil water advisories. That was also discussed during the city council retreat last Saturday. I understand city staff will review this to see if any cost-effective improvements can be made. So on August 12th, our city managers, city attorney, and I paid a visit to Colonel Nate Vogel, the commander of the McConnell Air Force Base. This was just to get to know each other type of visit. There was no real agenda, but it's good to know the leadership so that if there and when we need to discuss some issue, we know something about each other. I thank Jackie Kelly for setting up this meeting. And also they announced that they will be having an air show at the Air Force Base. I believe it's September 24th and 25th, if I have the right dates. It's that weekend, the Saturday and Sunday. So, okay. Then on August 12th, I also welcomed Jesse Miller's insurance agency to Bel Aire at an open house he held. I'm also glad to have new businesses see why life is better on the edge at Bel Aire. And lastly, on August 12th, a busy day, I attended the National Night Out host, and I do thank the police for putting that on. It was a great time to visit the citizens of Bel Aire, and like Ms. Hamburg, can't be two places at one time, so we'll fix that. So I'll now ask our city attorney for her report.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a report. I will address my report during a requested attorney-client executive session.
You request an executive session for attorney-client? Okay, thank you. There's a note here real quick. All right, so move on to the city manager's report.
My report, Mayor, is that today I saw the wood on my desk. I haven't seen that since I got back from vacation. So I've made it through my piles, and I appreciate the council allowing me to miss a council meeting to take a vacation with my wife. And so I have no report. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. I'm glad you enjoyed your vacation. At least I assume you did. From everything you said, it would sound like it was. Okay, thank you. So items 12, ordinances, resolution, and final actions. Item A, this is considering approval of 2023 City of Bel Aire budget for publication. So we held final discussion on the proposed 2023 budget at our August 9th workshop. Finance Director Ted Henry is here to present the proposed 2023 budget and answer any questions. The action tonight simply approves the summary numbers and mill rate to be published and schedules a public hearing. Line items can be adjusted within the budget and dollars lowered before the final budget is approved. However, total numbers and mill levy cannot be increased once published. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mayor Benaj. Council members, I'm here to present the 2023 proposed budget. Before I dive in, I just want to thank everybody who gave me their input on the proposed budget tonight. It's never an easy process, but most people I talk to just want to raise a family in a safe neighborhood, in a home they like, surrounded by a few good neighbors. And then we start talking about quality infrastructure, clean parks, a few recreational activities. You know how it works. But like all things, good budgets start with goals. Ours, the first one was to adopt a level property tax rate or the same property tax rate from the previous year. The second one is to find ways to increase funding for street improvements. The third was to provide quality services with efficiency. And the fourth was to sustain fiscal stability. Our budget, our city has many challenges. The past year has brought on many of these, no greater than the increase in development going on in our city. It's kind of amazing when you map it out, what all is going on. Staff has been working hard as they can to keep up, and I think it's been a major point of debate and discussion over the past several months. We're trying to find that balance between addressing the economic realities and the workforce needs of our growing community. We've seen a record number of permits issued over this past year. The mixture of development has projected to add over 500 new residences in our town, with more on the way. Current staff has already seen over 1,100 new customers in the past several years. Public Works is projected to complete double the amount of work orders they typically see in a year. Bel Aire is known for a safe community, and we intend to keep it that way. We all know recruitment, retention problems in police departments all over the country. In 2021, the City Council took a big step by increasing police officers' pay and help recruit and retain officers. This worked, but as we grow in population, we see ourselves falling behind other departments in the area of just numbers of police officers on patrol. After identifying our goals and challenges, we start with revenues. The city is proposed to collect a little over $7.2 million next year. 51% of all revenues in our general fund come out of property taxes. Nearly 20% of all revenues come out of our share of the county's 1% sales tax. All told, 80% of all revenues are collected by just a few taxes. The remaining 20% is collected by fees, fines, grants, and permits. Let's talk a little bit about property taxes. Currently, Bel Aire is somewhere in the middle with cities in this area of total property tax levy. Many people think that all their property taxes go to the city. This is not the case. We only collect about 30% of property taxes, with the remaining 70% going to other tax entities. Bel Aire's total assessed valuation is estimated to grow about 9.7%. The proposed budget you have before you adopts a property tax rate of 43.57 mils, the same as last year, and this is a 5% decrease in the past 2 years. In the past 2 years, the FY21 budget adopted a rate of 45.73 mils. I understand the revenue neutral rate notice went out and has a lot of percentages and estimates, totals represented. Some compare the percentages to Sedgwick County. I find it difficult to compare when maybe a new $400,000 house, which represents a 0.0008% of the $5.9 billion in assessed value for Sedgwick County versus a 0.05% of increase to our 85 million assessed value. So it's just hard to compare each other if that's what our citizens are trying to do. As far as estimated amounts goes, our proposed tax rate will be the same as last year's. Any actual increase or decrease will be due to the change in appraisal of the individual property. That's the other little thing they had on there with the revenue neutral rate. I always like to point this out. I've done it the last 6-1 is when you receive your tax statement, you flip it over. It'll give you the exact change in taxes that you had. There's no estimates, no nothing. It's the exact change in taxes to each entity. Some of the budget highlights for the general fund, as in previous years, a large portion of the 2023 budget is designed for infrastructure. We continue to invest in maintaining the city's roadway and network. In 2022, the City Council commissioned a road condition study and a strategic plan to address local streets. The adopted 5-year strategic plan will cost a little over $4 million, and the proposed budget fully funds next year's $780,000 annual commitment needed to complete the plan. In addition to infrastructure investments, the 2023 budget proposal contains requests to invest in our city's workforce. Public service is both rewarding and challenging work at the same time, and we need to continue to invest in the care for our employees. During the past year, the extraordinary growth in residential and commercial developments have substantially increased the demand for city services. This increase in demand stretched our current staff thin. The 2023 budget proposed tonight includes strategic additions to staffing, including 1 new police officer, a new public works operator, and a new utility clerk. While adding staff, new staff will assist in the overall workload. The 2023 proposed budget also helps current employees and recognize their expertise with up to a 5% increase in salary, plus a fully funded performance bonus program that we put in last year. Retaining good employees who do more with less is key to providing quality services with efficiency. Over the next year, leadership will actively pursue technology upgrades to further assist the employees' productivity and efficiencies. The city will spend a little over $8 million next year. 90% of all spending is used in what some call core government functions. It's always good to see that debt and land expenses are budgeted to decrease in 2023. A lot of that's to our efforts in selling land and removing carrying costs. We'll see an increase in public safety that reflects our commitment. We'll also see an increase in planning and zoning administration that reflects the assistance we need to address our growth issues. Probably the most visual element of our city costs about 10% of all spending. These includes the parks, the recreation, public grounds, senior center, and community development. Now we'll move to utility funds. Sometimes I wish people can see underground and realize the effort and the components needed to service each of our homes. The city receives its water from 2 sources. We partner with Park City and the CCUA. This agreement requires us to pay our share of debt services and operating costs. City also contracts with the City of Wichita as a wholesale customer. These 2 expenses represent about 50% of our total revenues collected. While 50% pays for the water to reach our borders, We're also responsible for maintaining all the water mains and water towers listed inside of our city. We have 2 water towers and 57 miles of water mains to maintain. Our public works crew services over 3,000 water accounts and will repair breaks as they happen 24/7, 365. Our clerks maintain customer service accounts, process billings, answer thousands of questions, and process thousands of payments. On the financial side, 87% of revenues inside our water fund is made up of the sale of water. Some cities have the ability to sell their raw water out. The Bel Aire certainly doesn't have that, and that doesn't defer. So nearly all of our revenues are paid from billing. On the expense side, we spend the other 50% of revenues collected to maintain our water system inside our boundaries. This year, tap fees are around $300,000, which is a big help, but we also have fees to install meters. So that's why you see the reflection of the commodities maintenance fees and others is a little bigger than it has been, because we're putting in more meters each year. The sewer is a lot similar to the water. We partner with Park City and the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority. The agreement requires us to pay our share of debt services and operating costs. The city also contracts with the city of Wichita if we need to treat for treated sewer. This represents about 42% of our total revenues collected. Again, 42% pays for the treatment of our waste, but we're also responsible for maintaining the sewer mains and lift stations inside our city limits. We have 5 lift stations now, going to go to 6, and over 45 miles of sewer mains to maintain. Again, on the financial side, about 89% of our revenues inside the sewer fund is made up of sewer charges. Some cities run perfectly downhill, but we won't get into all of that about the geography of sewer and how it's efficient. But the city ourselves has 5 lift stations. And on the expense side, we spend the other 48% of revenues collected to maintain water system inside, or the sewer system inside our boundaries, and possibly a sewer upgrade if need be. Some of the other funds, minor funds we have, all trash and recycling service revenues and expenses are paid out of the solid waste fund. Garbage trucks play a heavy role on our local streets. Therefore, we transfer $100,000 out of the solid waste fund and use them to repair our streets. The stormwater fund is funded with a $2 fee to all residentials, and then I think 10 for commercial, and various drainage. And we use these funds for various drainage improvements throughout the city. The Special Highway and Street Maintenance Fund consists of revenues received from state and county fuel tax. The 2023 budget will primarily be used as street maintenance fund for snow and ice removal and street lighting. Our bond and interest fund is more or less a pass-through fund. All special assessments received will be received and debt paid out by this fund. The once mighty land bank fund has dwindled really low as late. Simply speaking, we fund to pay the specials from the land across the street. And that's all out of the land bank fund this year and next year. The last thing I have is a calendar. You see we're on August 16th. What we're going to do is hopefully set a hearing date for the revenue neutral rate hearing. We'll close that hearing, open a budget hearing, or pass a resolution, and then open a budget hearing, and then close the budget hearing, and then be able to adopt our budget after that. If there's any questions, I'll stand for comment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greg, David.
2 questions, Mr. Henry. One is to explain what we're voting on again. It was said that we couldn't raise the mill levy after the hearing. Is there any changes that can be done?
Yes, we can literally do anything but raise the mill levy. So what we're doing right now is setting it announcing it to the public to come give us your comments on this particular mill levy. If the council hears from the public and decides to lower it, they can do so. But one thing you can't do is go above and beyond, because then that would trigger, we'd have to notify all the citizens again because you're increasing the mill levy.
Okay. And then on that mill levy, versus the revenue neutral rate, it seems like they're almost 2 separate things. It seems very extreme to think that a growing city could stay at a reduced mill levy. It's almost like the increased revenue is due to increased taxes, and we would be a severe cut to go to the revenue neutral rate. And so it's almost like the revenue neutral rate is deceptive in that it doesn't show what the gain is from increased homes and increased taxation, versus the mill levy seems like a regular part. So I'm not sure what the question was in that. It was can you explain why that 9% looks so high? It's like they're going off an unrealistic, the revenue neutral rate of 39.7 seems like it's totally irrelevant to income, if that makes sense.
Now, this was passed by the state legislature. I don't want to
And I'm not
throw
trying to
support
critique
one
them
way or
either.
the other. It's a highly political situation. I don't know if Mayor Benaj has a read on it, but that's kind of my thing. Essentially, what the revenue neutral rate is representing is $3.5 million, which we collected last year, and that is basically what they're saying we should collect this year. I really is that,
That's what the revenue
and
neutral
I think
would be.
you're a little bit
So-
on the right path with a growing city. It's hard to say we're going to maintain. How many years out should we stay at that 3.5?
So if you were revenue neutral as a growing city, your mill rate would decrease. Okay? That's the only way that can happen as a growing city. If you stayed stagnant as a city, it wouldn't. But if you're growing, it's going to decrease. So you can't, it's not realistic for a city that's growing to do that, because you've got to add staff. You've got to add things to provide more services for more people. The one good thing is that you can probably track this. I have not done this, but if you looked at your assessed valuation and saw how much it increased from last year to this year, that percentage should be identical to the percentage increase in taxes that you're seeing on the notice from the county. Okay, they should be identical, because we're not changing the mill levy. Okay, the mill levy rate is staying the same. So those increases are strictly due to increased valuation. Now, is that an increase in tax? Yes, it is, in dollars. Okay, it is not an increase in mill rate, but it is an increase in tax in dollars. I don't know if that helps clarify anything, but
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I was just going to say that I expect what we'll see in our city over time is we're going to continue to grow, which is going to continue to add revenue, which is going to continue to drive our need for revenue to go up. It's my hope that the rate that our revenue increases is not the same rate that our expenses increase over time, and you end up decreasing the mill levy a little bit every year while your expenses and your revenue actually go up, so that you're kind of offsetting some of the expense or some of the revenue growth with some mill levy reduction. I think what other cities will also find is, even if you're not growing, prices tend to go up, and so costs go up every year typically for most things, even if you're not growing. And it'll be interesting to see if there's ever a situation where mill levy stays the same, where the revenue neutral rate is adopted for any city for any extended period of time. I think that would be a really interesting phenomenon if that were to happen. So we did lower the mill levy a lot last year, which I think is why we're seeing that we're not able to do that this year and still maintain all the budget priorities that we have.
And I agree with that broad goal of reducing the mill levy year over year. But this year, the numbers just aren't going to let it happen and do what we need to do. So, great. Any other questions or discussion?
And I would say, really a lot of page, or I guess my slide with the budget highlights. It's streets, HVAC. We're spending our money on a lot of things that we haven't decided yet, but those are pretty basic governmental functions. So that's my 2 cents. Is I think we're doing.
Ms. Hamburg.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that nobody wants to cut expenses more than me, and nobody looked for a way to do it more than me. But I mean, I'm happy to hear from citizens, but I just want them to understand we are trying to be as lean as possible, and we don't have control over some of these pieces. We didn't print a bunch of money in the past 2.5 years that caused a lot of inflation. We don't assess the property values for you. So I would say it's probably wise to keep your eye on the mill levy, because that's what we have the ability to control. And keep in mind that it was a larger than expected jump last year. And I mentioned this at our retreat. I hope we can continue that downward trend next year and maintain services.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the City of Bel Aire 2023 budget as presented for publication and schedule a public hearing to exceed the revenue neutral rate and a public hearing on the budget at the regular city council meeting at a city council meeting on September 7th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Thank you. I was
Like
going to
to
ask for a
change.
correction if you didn't. I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Welch. And he did change the verbiage in the, so, okay, thank you. Hearing any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item B. So the city budgets annually to replace old water mains that are cast iron and or have developed numerous leaks. Staff has determined that Aurora Park and 41st Street water mains meet the criteria and are next on this list. Ironically, the one at 41st burst on us here a couple weeks ago. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So the 2022 budget contains $600,000 for such expenses. Staff contacted 5 companies with 4 submitting bids, and Ann is here to explain the project and answer questions. And you caught me by surprise that you're already up at the podium. So thank you.
Try not to waste council time, making sure I'm here ready to go. So this project is similar to projects that we have done in years past, where we are replacing old existing water mains with new PVC mains. The current mains are cast iron and they do develop leaks. There's just, due to the nature of our water, it does tend to corrode a little bit and corrodes the pipes. The pipes do develop some pitting and eventually leads to leaks with various scenarios. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to get ahead of the curve and trying to be proactive and replacing these pipes before they get too terribly leaky and have to be called out in the middle of the night to repair leaks, shutting water mains off for citizens, which is never fun. So.
And being cast iron, it's already pitted as it comes out of the factory. So
Yep,
you
pretty
just add
much.
to the pits. Right?
Exactly.
How much more do we have left to replace?
I don't know specifically. I do know that in 2023, there are 3 lines that were set to replace. One on Kruger Street in Lawn Terrace, one on Harding Street in Lawn Terrace, and then Hanover in Pearson's Addition. So we've got quite a bit of old cast iron mains that do need
Continuing
replacing.
process.
Yes.
We're not going to finish with these.
No,
Darn.
Not like the cure in place sewer line,
I was
right?
hoping, but you know.
How many miles did Ted say? 57 miles of water line?
Yeah, we keep adding to it. I wouldn't say every day, but
But we're not
On
adding
a-
cast iron.
no, we use PVC.
Right.
But that's probably fairly close, probably 57 to 60. We've got about 55 miles of streets, so
What's
Similar.
the composition of the valves on these new lines? What's the materials?
I'm sorry,
The material of the valves on these lines? And
the
line-
valves are usually ductile iron.
Ductile iron?
Yes.
Not a whole lot better than cast iron, but a little bit.
Quite a bit better. It's just better manufacturing practices.
Yeah, and they're
Well,
generally
that's true.
coated too.
Mhm. Correct.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Welch.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid from UMC in the amount of, well, in two amounts, $219,717 and in $210,771 for water main replacements for Aurora Park and along 41st Street, and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Welch and a second by Mr. Dean. Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C. So the 2022 budget contains $55,000 in CIP for replacement public works truck. Staff requested bids for a one-ton flatbed from all local truck dealerships. Due to supply chain issues, no bids were received. So 2023 models years cannot be bid until October, when they will receive pricing from the manufacturer, with an order being placed starting in January for delivery in the fall of 2023. Staff reached out to all local dealers to see if there had any trucks in stock. Don Hatton actually had a 2022 one-ton cab and chassis on the lot with a diesel motor. The proposal includes the cost of outfitting with a flatbed provided by Midwest Truck. Staff discussed the proposal and feels this truck will meet their needs and would prefer to move forward on the purchase. And Ted is here to answer questions. Mr. Henry.
So here's one of the times we're in. Last Wednesday morning, and Melissa likes all material for the agenda done by the Wednesday before, and I got a call from Dave, said we found one, and they found a truck that was in stock and available that they could use, a 1-ton, at a price that we felt was fair, and under budget we had to replace their 1-ton truck for this year out of equipment replacement. The issue, and I think Representative Mayor Benaj said, is all these dealerships don't have any in stock, and you can't even order them or can't get a price on them until October, I believe, or coming up in the next few months, and then they're 9 months out there. If you've ever seen any of our fleet, it's rather old. So staff decided, let's go ahead and jump on this opportunity if we have one, and purchase this one. That's what you have before you is the recommendation.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
Mr. Smith.
just a couple questions. One, it's in stock, but it's still a new vehicle. Is that right? It's
Correct.
still brand new.
Correct.
And then what are some typical things that this vehicle will be used for?
So this one, and Ann actually might be the best one here for that.
This vehicle will most likely be used in all aspects of public works, from water main replacements, bringing material out to the site, hauling trailers, et cetera, sewer mains, cleaning, hauling stuff, Parks Department, again, hauling things. It's going to be used in every aspect. We have no extra vehicles that sit around. Even our bucket truck gets used on a daily basis to keep it running.
I noticed we got a lot less features than we wanted for almost the price we were willing to spend. Is that indicative of current market trends, or why do you?
Yeah, so it's really not as comparable, because with the 55, what I was talking to Dave, because I said that we're going to need a comparable, and 65 was really his comparable to this one. The 55 would be just your standard, not the flatbed, what we're going to do with outfitted with Midwest. So he was putting the price around 65, which we're getting at 53. Dave was, and then our budget was 55. So yes, it's not 4-wheel drive, but we do have added with the utility bed and with all the, he was saying, the department, or the ease of the utility bed makes it a more valuable purchase than what they're planning, just a regular.
Right. It also did not have a PTO, which I thought was one of our features. And is that something we use very often, or?
It was a requested feature. Ann, do you know anything on the PTO status? I'm glad you're here, Ann. I know, I do.
The PTO is used, but we do have several other vehicles that have it. So with this vehicle not having it, it does not pose that big of an issue for us. We've got quite a bit of other flexibility.
And it's not got a nice leather cloth seats or something like that that are going to get torn up right off the bat, is it?
I haven't looked at this one very closely, but I think if I trust Dave, Dave looks out for the city. He's not going to get something that we can't use or that's going to need maintenance. If it's something that is going to need a lot of maintenance, it's not worth us getting, because it's the downtime on that vehicle that we have a vehicle, but we can't use it because it's down, getting repaired, needing maintenance. So he's very conscientious of all that.
Yeah, I was just thinking like an old truck I used to have that was vinyl seats and vinyl floor, and you could literally hose it out and it'd be fine to get in 10 minutes and drive it off.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of an outfitted 2022 Chevrolet 3500 regular cab two-wheel drive diesel truck at a cost not to exceed $53,000.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. Welch. Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And item 13, executive session. So Ms. Kelly has asked for an executive session for attorney-client privilege. How much time do you think we need? 15 minutes? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to go into executive session for the sole purpose of discussing the subject of attorney-client consultation regarding contract negotiations pursuant to KSA 75-4319, exception for attorney-client privilege. Invite the city manager and the city attorney. The meeting will be for a period of 15 minutes, and the open meeting will resume in the city council chambers at 8:01 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Hamburg and a second by Mr. Smith. Any question or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We're in executive session until 8:01. So we held an executive session. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. No binding action was taken. And so we'll move on to the next action item. 14, discussion and future issues. So there was an error made on a publication notice that states the public hearing for revenue neutral rate to be on September 7th. Our options are to move our regular, that's on Wednesday. So our options are to move our regular meeting of September 6th to the 7th at 7 p.m. or hold a special meeting on September 7th, which would mean we'd come back the 6th and the 7th. So and Ted's here to explain details and options and what we would like to do. I'm open both nights.
Really,
so
it's a
I'm okay.
request. I'm a little humble pie here. My fault. Embedded calendar and on a form got me, I think, but no excuses. My fault. Won't happen again. But because it was printed on the notice, we really need to have it that day. So it's up to you guys, and I apologize.
I kind of appreciate Ted's mistake because I just assumed that week, move it all to Wednesday if that works for everybody else, and just have our regular meeting and the hearing together on Wednesday, the 7th.
I like that.
Everybody else okay with that?
I don't think the hearing will last long, so I'm okay with that too. I don't want to have to come back up here for a 10-minute hearing like we had tonight where we just stared at blank empty chairs.
We didn't stay very long.
No,
but we had to do it.
But if you have to
That's right.
drive up here or sit
Oh, yeah.
down, go in session and
Right. Okay. All right. So now we'll just not have a meeting on the 6th and we'll have a regular meeting on the 7th. Do we need to make a motion? Do we need to do anything formal to do that or what do we need to do?
We really should have a motion because your meeting dates are set in policy. So we need to have a motion to do that.
So I'll entertain a motion to move our regular city council meeting from September 6th to the 7th.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David,
motion to move the regular city council meeting from September 6th to September 7th at 7 p.m.
I'll second.
a motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We'll have the regular next meeting on September 7th. Oh, you had the motion there. Okay. All right. Catch up.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
Yeah,
I move to adjourn.
second. I almost went over him too, but I thought he might accidentally have something else first that he needed to do.
So I have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion on adjournment? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.